Hey guys, Drifter here. Welcome to Modern Warfare in Depth. In today's episode, we're going to be reviewing the R9-0 shotgun. The main series of In Depth is over, so future episodes will be infrequent and only on topics that I like. And I do happen to like the R9-0 shotgun. I've been saying it's one of the sleeper best weapons in the game since launch, and in my opinion, the R9-0 is a better overall shotgun than the 725, even though it doesn't have the same crazy range. I'm telling you guys, this gun is an absolute monster. It is definitely getting the respect it deserves now, but it wasn't at launch. And I know that a lot of people like to run overkill with the 725. The 725 is probably better at killing like a person, but the R9-0 can clean out an entire room, which is awesome. We're going to start off with the rate of fire today, which is 145 rounds per minute total. However, it's kind of a weird weapon. It's semi-automatic, but after you fire it twice, you have to cock it, and most people spam that, so it's effectively like a 2-round burst. It's also usually a 2-shot kill, so I wrote it down that way. The rate of fire of the burst is 300 rounds per minute, and you have a delay of about 500 milliseconds, which will effectively cut your total RPM down a little bit. That's not very fast compared to other weapons, but it's quite nice for shotguns. I do want to point out that headshots do increase damage, but only by about 1% inconsistently, which seems kind of weird, so I really wouldn't recommend going for headshots. I think they put them in there only for camo challenges or whatever. What we should probably do is talk about the one-shot range of this shotgun. Now, when the game first launched, it was 12 meters. This was one of the first weapons to get a stealth nerf, and unfortunately, the current one-shot range of the R9-0 is about 3.8 meters, and in-game, this is going to be like spitting distance. This is going to be like people in your face kind of distance. The choke is 3.7 meters. I know it's supposed to increase range, but I actually got less range during every single test, which is odd. The monolithic suppressor gave me a tiny increase up to 4, F-Tac Sentry a tiny increase up to 3.9, and the F-Tac Gemini a tiny decrease down to 3.5. Now the Gemini is supposed to lower range and widen spread so that you can, ADS faster and sprint out faster and stuff, but overall, the ranges are pretty low. No matter what you put on it, it's going to be a low-range shotgun for one-shot kills. However, that's not really what matters. This gun is all about the 2-shot range. The 2-shot range is often crazy long, but difficult to measure accurately because at those ranges, your hip firing or your aim down sights, tighter spread is a little bit off, and it's difficult for me to tell as a tester how many of the pellets are actually hitting and how much damage it is or is not doing at these kind of ranges, but I can only speak from experience that the 2-shot kill range is much longer than you think, and the 3-shot kill range is incredibly long if you get that pump and that second set of shots out. I do want to talk about the slugs before we move into pellet spread. The slugs behave a little bit oddly on this shotgun. Slugs can only one-shot kill to the upper chest and to the head. So if you're using these, you need to be relatively close and needed to aim for upper body. Don't get just any hits, and people that jump when you have this weapon, you're just not going to get the one-shots that you want. The slug one-shot ranges for the upper body at least is 25 meters, and for the headshot, that's not bad. That's really not bad at all. And for the headshot, I actually could not measure it because the shotgun slugs on the R9-0 actually function more like hip fire when you aim down sights. Either one of two things has happened. Either some developer somewhere programmed this to have tighter hip fire spread when you ADS, so that when you do it with the shotgun pellets, they tighten up, and they just applied that to slugs as well, so your slugs are a little bit closer to center when you ADS. Or because it's a double barrel side-by-side alternating, tube shotgun, they decided they'd be really clever and have your shots be a little bit off side to side. I'm not sure exactly which one it is, but the point of it is that when you aim down sights, you don't actually have a true hit scan, perfect follow the track of the little red dot like you do with most other weapons. It's more like Battlefield, where what you have is an incredibly tight hipfire box, and the slug can come out off center. It can go sideways or just not in the direction that you're aiming. I couldn't find a consistent pattern for it. I thought it'd be like a left-right alternating because of the barrels, but that didn't really pan out. But what I want you to do is keep in mind that even if you directly aim at somebody's head, and I have gameplay of this, and you pull the trigger, sometimes that slug is just gonna go sideways and you're not gonna hit anything. I think this is a glitch. It drives me crazy in a lot of ways, and that's one of many reasons I don't think that slugs are the optimal attachment for this weapon. On a similar note, aiming down sights can significantly tighten your pellet spread. Here's a very brief side-by-side so you can see what I'm talking about. ADSing just tightens that up. I know that doesn't work that way in real life, but for COD logic it definitely does. And there's a Couple of attachments that can make your aim down sights tighter according to the chart, but they don't do much. They have a very minor increase for each one of them, kind of going through the test here now so you can see. And there is a lot of randomness and flukiness to the shotgun, so even sometimes if I had, say, the Gemini barrel on there that has a wider spread, because randomness, it can be tighter than what's supposed to be the tight one, and that's not supposed to happen, but it can. The only two that I found that worked well were the choke and F-tac together. If you run either one of them independently, it's not very much, and the choke even seems to decrease your range slightly. However, when you stack these two together, it will tighten your pellet spread by a fair bit. It's actually noticeable, and that noticeability range is the range at which I would recommend it being a good attachment for you. Let's talk about the aim down sights times on this weapon, because it's supposed to be an up-in-your-face, fast-killing, fast-reaction shotgun, and it's not useful to anybody if it's slow. So the base aim down sights time on the R9-0 is pretty slow at 300 milliseconds. If you put the choke on there, there's actually no penalty, which is nice. You got a 2-frame penalty, taking it up to 233 for the monolithic suppressor. F-tac Sentry had the biggest penalty out of everything at 350, and the F-tac Gemini saves you 1 frame at 283 if you decide to go with the wider pellet spread and less damage, which I don't know why you would. The other attachments can be a little bit better. The tac laser takes it down to 250, but of course people can see it. The close quarters pump that you have, you can add different pumps to this weapon as an attachment. It didn't do anything different. I wasn't able to measure a difference on this one. It was still 300. The Merc foregrip is very nice at 266. That's almost as good as the tac laser, but it also helps you control recoil. And Stippled saves your frame down at 283. What's perhaps more important is your sprint out times. The base is again quite slow at 300. The 1 milliwatt laser will drop it down to 216, which is a colossal improvement for this attachment. This is an attachment that doesn't get a lot of use, and I think rightfully so, because for a lot of weapons it doesn't even measurably tighten up the hipfire spread, or maybe like a tiny, like 5% or something. But for this one, it significantly cuts your sprint out time, and that laser is much more difficult to see than the green one. However, the green 5 milliwatt laser will take it down to 183, which is another like huge improvement. That's 2 more frames, and the stippled grip tape will take it down a little bit to 266. So when you're looking at your totals for both of these, the minimum aim down sights time is 200 milliseconds, and the minimum sprint out time, which from here on out I'm just going to call SPO for my sanity, so it lines up really nice and looks good on video, is 166 milliseconds, which is rather fast, especially for a weapon that close quarters can delete you in one shot. In my opinion, I think it is worth it to boost sprint out time, but not so much aim down sights time. This isn't a weapon that I think many of you are really going to ADS on, where you're really going to need that pellet spread, where it's going to be very, clutch and critical. This is a weapon that's a lot more hipfire dependent. You're going to run around really fast, you're going to want to spam people, you're going to want to spray them down and things like that. And having a good sprint out time so you can immediately just start dropping that hipfire spam is going to be a lot more valuable than having a snappy ADS. Which almost perfectly segues into the strategy portion of this episode. The strategy for the R9-0 is very simple. All you want to do is get within about 7 meters of your target and double tap them. That's pretty much the only thing you need to learn with this gun. Is you don't even have to get crazy close, and previously it had a little bit better range than it does now, but you can still pop people and double tap them at surprising ranges with the 2-tap. It's really a 2-hit or quit kind of weapon. The way it seems to function is that the first shot will deal the vast majority of your damage. So if you're shooting at a target that's already a little bit weak, if they're struggling, if they're trying to recover, you'll probably one-shot them at a very, very impressive range. And that's kind of all there is to it. I wish I could tell you there was like some crazy important strategy or some niche thing, but no, you just want to get relatively close and just start spamming your rounds all over the place, and I promise you, you will clean house with this weapon. The R9-0 has less range than several of the other shotguns. It is not designed to get picks like the Model 680 or the 725. Those weapons they're pretty much in this game so that you can be very precise with shotguns, and so that people that run overhill can have one-hit, death sticks in their back pocket. The R9-0 is not going to hit like that. What it's really designed to do is to rapidly clear rooms. Now, with the Model 725, you've got 2 shots and you're done. With the Model 680, when you would clear a room, you would shoot and pump and kind of go back and forth between cover and stuff. With the R9-0, you can just kind of run in and spam and just tear people up. Now, the Origin, I think, is perhaps a little bit more like that, except the damage is just so terrible, almost nobody uses it. The R9-0 is just a better Origin. You can really sneak up on some people people and tear them to shreds. And in my opinion, this weapon is best used when you're expecting a steady stream of enemies. I think it's great for holding hard points in headquarters. I think it's great for small maps like Shoot House. It is surprisingly good in ground war as long as you're able to flank and get close. And in ground war, what I tended to do is I ran a Desert Eagle until I was ready to use the shotgun. I can depend on the Deagle for a lot of things. It's a 2-tapping machine. It's an excellent backup weapon. And with that in my back pocket, I could then, push enemies. I could pick off people not paying attention. And once I'm up close, it's time to swap to the R9-0 and tear some butts open. My personal favorite class is to run the Choke and the F-Tac Sentry. Not that these really help the range, but they do tighten up the pellet spread, which will then theoretically at least tighten up your damage. And I get good results with them like that too. They do slow down the ADS and handling on the weapon a bit. I run the 5 milliwatt laser. I like the further increased hip fire. I like that it is the fastest sprint out possible, though I do know that a lot of you are not fans of the green laser. And if you want to swap over and use the red laser for this particular instance, I think that is more than fine. It'll work very, very well, I promise you. Stippled grip helps a little bit here and there with everything, not really so much with ADS, but it's mostly for sprint out. And then finally, I run the Merc grip to make my ADS a little bit less terrible, and so that I can also have some recoil control, because it does kick a little bit. I guess if I'm really going to ADS and go for like these long shot pick kind of things, it's nice to not have my gun kick like crazy bad, just maybe regular bad. And with that, you can definitely clear house with the R9-0. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode of In Depth. I hope you learned something useful, and I'll have another one in a week or two, maybe, depends on what's going on with COD. Drifter out.